Okay, the first UFC pay-per-view of the year is upon us. UFC 283, Teixeira versus Hill for the vacant light heavyweight belt, as well as Figueiredo versus Moreno for the flyweight belt, as well as Gilbert Burns and Neil Magny. And we have likes of Lauren Murphy and Jessica Andrade on the card. Paul Cray versus Johnny Walker. Very action-packed main card. Then we got Marisa Hua fighting on the prelims. We also have Thiago Moises fighting there. And on the early prelims, we got Terence McKinney, who I think is a very exciting guy. Wally Alves, man who beat Colby Covington, fighting. But yeah, there isn't really much hype on this one. It's obviously a very... there are some UFC pay-per-view cards which I think are very lackluster, and then some which are elite. And this falls, and then there are very solid cards obviously, but this falls very much on the good to poor, I would say. One sec. Yeah, this would fall, I'd say, on the very good to average, I would say. A very I'd say a decent card to open the year, especially, and a very interesting main event. But I'm going to focus, like I always do, on the main three fights. So starting off, we got Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny in the welterweight division. Obviously, starting off with Dorino. Obviously, his last fight was that fight against Khamzat Chimaev, which was in my top 5 MMA moments of 2022. An incredible fight, and he earned a lot of respect from that. Burns lost the fight, but still an incredible fight. And coming into this, I think this would be a very interesting one. You got two guys, Neil Magny, who obviously is coming off the win against Daniel Rodriguez with a submission in the third. Before that, had the loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov. So yeah, I'd say some. When I look at this fight, you got two guys who are not, I wouldn't say in a similar position. I think Burns is a lot more respected. I think he's looked at as one of the sort of not boogeyman of the division, but a guy who is a problem. A guy who I think would give Covington, gave Usman a hell of a fight, but he would give Covington a hell of a fight. Him and Leon Edwards would be, I think, an incredible fight. There's so many interesting fights with Burns. Even if they made a Chimaev Burns a 5-rounder, if that went to the 4th and 5th, Burns may have taken it. So I think it's an interesting fight of this one. Neil Magny is an interesting one because he's been in the UFC for quite a while now. 35, has a ridiculously long reach, as everybody knows. Never uses it really, which is the one thing that's quite frustrating about the guy. A fairly decent striker, but there's something about with Neil Magny. I wouldn't say he's a gatekeeper as such, but he's one of those guys who's in and around the welterweights. He's I would say he's a fairly decent striker, but nothing that you would look at and think he has like one thing. I mean, he has the one thing of the reach, but doesn't use it. He hasn't got that one attribute that is much better than everybody else's. He has the whole thing of being quite a well-rounded fighter, and I think because of that is why he's always, like I said, he's a gatekeeper really. Same, I would say maybe just under. I'd say in this division, Wonderboy to me is the ultimate gatekeeper. As good as Wonderboy is, I feel like he's at that level. But yeah, with Neil Magny, like I said, solid all round, solid jiu-jitsu, solid grappling, very decent striker, but nothing too that overwhelms guys. And that's sort of the one thing about him, which again, he's one of those guys. Maybe if he was ever able to use his reach a bit better, I think he would be a legitimate problem. He obviously does have he has the record for the most wins in welterweight, but I still think, again, he's just never really got there. But a good fighter though, nonetheless. And in this fight, it's this interesting fight. I think with Burns, he struggles because he kind of fights squatted over. He tends to go down very easily if you stick a solid jab in front of him. But Magny really hasn't got the power in either hand, I think, to really do the damage to Burns. At the same time, though, Burns, if he gets reckless, it can be a bit of that's where he kind of loses his composure a little bit. Against Usman, I always thought he had a bit of an adrenaline dump after the first. Against Chimaev, he was doing good, but when he makes it a war, I think it's where you kind of have to see how tough the other guy is, and yeah, that's when Magny will be tested. Before my prediction, I think Burns knocks him out in the first round. To be honest, I think Burns will come out. He's refreshed, 35, so he's not actually really that old. You think Burns? He's not. Don't get me wrong. 35 isn't 36. My mistake. He's 36, but 36 isn't young by any means. But it's also MMA works in a way where you can be old. You're going to see this in the guy in the main event. You can be as old as you want, but I think if your body's still there and mentally you're still motivated, you see guys, they can fight for so long. And I think Burns will come out aggressive. I think Magny will use the reach. I think Burns will shoot for the takedown early on. I think he'll try to almost put that into Magny's mind. And I think he'll land it overhand right while Magny's up against the fence. He'll fake the takedown, go overhand right, and I think he'll flatten him out cold. And I think he gets to finish him. He was complaining about Bilal Muhammad I think he's gone above him in the rankings. I think to me, the way I look at the welterweight division, one is obviously the champ is Edwards, but then you've got Usman, you have Covington, then I would say you have Chimaev, and then Burns personally. I think and then you have the likes of Ratmanov and Sean Brady and people like that. But it's, like I said, fairly welterweight division itself is a fairly entertaining division, I would say. It's one of those. I think a few years ago it was one of the most exciting. Actually, I would say it was probably the most exciting division in the whole of MMA. You had so many intriguing matchups. Back in them days, you had people like Woodley was still sort of around, and obviously you had people like Usman on the rise, Covington on the rise, Edwards, Darren Till was still doing his thing. It's gone down a bit now because Usman got the whole weight class out, but it's kind of reshuffling itself. So I think it should be good. And yeah, I think Burns gets this one done though in the first round KO, and a win for him. I'd love to see him and Colby, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Colby will take it. Him and Chimaev again would be a good one, but I still don't know if that's really... If they'll make the fight, doesn't really seem that appealing for the UFC, so... I don't know. Maybe him and Bilal would be a great one, but I think maybe that would be the fight to make, but again, we'll have to see for where Burns goes. But yeah, I think Dorino takes that first round KO. Now, we go into the co-main. Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno 4. One of the crazier sort of stories in MMA with these two. Obviously, first fight was a draw. Second fight, Moreno took it. Third fight, Figueiredo took it. And I think it's interesting because these two, I think, are so far ahead of those guys at flyweight. There are some very good up-and-coming contenders at flyweight, but I do sort of look at these two at the moment. I think they are ahead of the rest. Moreno is obviously the younger out of the two, slightly taller and has a slight reach advantage, Moreno. But I think this weight cut is starting to take it out on Figueiredo a little bit on this one. I do, in terms of all of the fights that they've had so far. I think the first one was absolute war, where Figueiredo was kind of doing very good early on, but Moreno was able to come back into it. And then I think the second fight was when Moreno really impressed me and showed that he was at a level that he could compete with the elite. And then the third fight was such a great fight, so close, but I gave it to Figueiredo. I remember the third fight. It was a very close fight, but people say it's a robbery. Again, people go too much with that word. That was a great fight and very close one, and it was a good decision in the end. But yeah, an incredible sort of trilogy of fights. And now we get the fourth, because it's one of those, one's a draw, one guy wins one guy wins the other. This one settles it. If we get another draw, I swear I'm going to lose my head. This is the one that settles it. I can't be, as much as I love seeing these two fight, it can't be having it a fifth time. This is the ultimate decider between these two. Obviously, for Brandon Moreno, his last fight was obviously for the interim belt, where he beat Kai Kara France, KO'd him in the third round. I thought Moreno would lose actually, but I think he showed again he's elite Moreno. He isn't no joke. He's not just someone who lives with the hype of one guy who has the one win and just that's just it. He's continuously getting better, and I think it's going to be intriguing, this one. And then for the champ Figueiredo, obviously his last fight was against Moreno. Fun enough, it was all the way back in January, so it's literally been a year since Figueiredo's been in the octagon. Whereas for Moreno, I think I got cast my mind back here. I want to say, let me look. I feel like it was November or something when he last fought. Oh no, it was July. When he last fought. It wouldn't be November. That's too soon. Yeah, it was July. When he fought. So it was in the summertime. So again, not. It's been a while since he's been there as well, but a lot more sooner than Figueiredo. And I think, I'm looking at pictures of Figueiredo. It looks like the weight cut's taken out of him a bit. Yeah, I in my prediction, I think the key for this fight, I think Figueiredo did amazing on the feet against Moreno. I think when Moreno mixes up, I think he's a nightmare. I think out of the two of them, Moreno has a bit more of a bang in his punches, but it's close either way. Like I said, I think these two are so evenly matched. I think Figueiredo has that thing. He's very skilled off his back and the feet. Again, they're both incredibly well-rounded fighters. The only thing I'd say about the two of them is I think Moreno loaded up a lot in the last fight they had. He kind of kept looking for that big sort of KO punch to put him out, and I don't think it was intelligent. Whereas I felt Figueiredo was a lot more composed and kept his cool. And if you remember, did drop Moreno at one point in the fight. So I think for Moreno, I think the key in this fight, in my opinion, is to be patient and not be as aggressive as he was previous times. Don't get twisted. To take the belt from the champion, obviously he's the interim champ, but to take the belt from the champion, you need a certain amount of aggression. But I think it's about just being intelligent in there and not bum rushing and being very, very just be smart, use your fight IQ. I think for Figueiredo, in this one, I think it's about trying to almost stay on the outside a bit more. I know Moreno has a reach advantage, so it's kind of counterintuitive, but I do genuinely believe that. I don't think, personally, that... I think on the feet, I don't think it's much between, but I just feel like he's a bit more of a technical striker, I would say, Moreno. And it sounds, Figueiredo, which again, it's not that much between. They both got very solid chins. I think it's going to be tough, but yeah, I don't know. I think this is a close one, either way, though. For my prediction, however, it's close. I don't even know what round I'll say, but I just feel like Moreno will get this one done via KO. I feel like he's time now to take the belt and be champion for a long time. Figueiredo's been incredible, but I think now, I just feel like he's going to take it. I think he needs to move up Figueiredo now, up to bantamweight. I think you got some amazing fights from him in that weight class, and yeah, I think Moreno's going to take it. I think he'll be close. I think he'll be even, but I think he will just catch him with something that will put him down. I think the weight cut's taken out of him, and I think his chin will be very, very... as we know, when you cut the weight, your chin is great, and I think he'll get it done. I think it will be a close one, but I feel like he'll catch him in a sequence with the left hook, drop him, and then I can just see him landing a crazy barrage, and then ended up the referee jumping in when Figueiredo's just taking too much punishment. But yeah, again, close fight, could go either way. As we've seen with this fight, it's the fourth time these guys are fighting, but yeah, I think that Moreno gets this one done, though, personally. An incredible fight, and incredible that we got to see these guys fight 4 times. I could watch these guys fight all day. I'm not complaining about this being a 4th fight, because they are two of the best, clearly. But yeah, to me, I think Brandon Moreno takes it. I think he gets the belt, and this time I think he keeps it for a long time. So yeah, Moreno gets it done, and then we go into the main event for the vacant light heavyweight bout. Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. Now, an interesting fight, this one. Obviously, you got Glover, the older man, 43, Hill 31. Teixeira, Hill has a 3-inch reach advantage over Glover. Slightly taller, Jamal Hill. But yeah, an interesting fight, this one. Obviously, Yuri Prohaska was the champion, but had to vacate due to the injury he had. And they kind of didn't really want to make the fight, so then you had the Blachowicz and Anklev fighting, but then that ended up being a draw. Yeah, this light heavyweight division is a mess, and I hope this now we get a bit cleared up. I love Glover, legend. I don't really have preferences, but I don't know if you can be having a champion at 43, I'll be honest, as good as he is. I think Jamal Hill needs to get this one done. I think you have a guy in Hill who's a destructive puncher, who's very, very heavy-handed, can knock you out. He's very skilled on the feet, bounces on his feet, and he's a dog. And I think he's got everything. I think, in theory, has everything to beat Glover. Whether he'll do it or not, I thought Blachowicz had everything to beat Glover, but obviously Glover showed that, he's just all man. He's in there to fight. And yeah, I think Glover's a legend, but I don't know. I feel like we're at a point in the light heavyweight division where Prohaska's going to come back and eventually fight for the battle. He has to. You can't give him a warm-up fight. He was the champion. The only reason he vacated because he got an injury. I think that will be the fight eventually. But to me, I'd like to see. I like to see Jamal Hill take this one. To be honest, nothing. If Glover wins, I won't ever cuss at what is he Glover. 43 being the champ is incredible, and I have nothing but respect for him. But I just think at this point, I need to see some younger champions, and like I said, Jamal Hill's 31, destructive puncher, knees fantastic in the clinch, throws elbows. He's, like I said, light on his feet, switches stances quite a bit, and if he finds that shot, he knocks anybody out in this division. I think he's one of the few fighters that I think does have that bit of an X factor when he fights. You're looking at his last few fights. Obviously, his last fight, he obviously KO'd Thiago Santos in the 4th. Before that, KO'd Johnny Walker in the 1st. And then the fights before that, we had him beating Jimmy Crute. He obviously lost to Paul Craig, got KO'd in the 1st, which was a crazy one. I don't know how that happens, because in Paul Craig don't really KO people like that. But shows you, unpredictable sport, this it's MMA. Only lost over his career. Obviously, had the 1-0 contest as well. And then obviously with Glover, his last fight was that incredible fight against Yuri Prohaska, which Yuri somehow pulled up the submission in the 5th after a crazy back and forth. Obviously beat Blachowicz after that. That's another thing with Glover as well, and I don't even blame him for this. He's very inactive, and as a champion, you want an active champion, and that's why I want to see. I feel like Jamal Hill will be a bit more active than what Glover was. So yeah, a very close fight though. If he can establish his wrestling, Glover, get him down for enough rounds, tire him out, it's a wrap. I mean, Hill's very good takedown first, and his grappling, I'd imagine he'll be very, very working on that a lot. But it's just, when you face Matt Glover, it's different. You see Blachowicz struggle with that. The fact that it's a vacant belt as well, they've almost both got something to fight for, but I feel like for Hill, there'll be a bit more of a chip on his shoulder for that. Close fight though. However, when it comes to my prediction, I think Jamal Hill will knock him cold. I want to say about this 3rd round, I'd say. I think it'll be close. I think Glover will go for the takedown, but I feel like Hill will time him with the knee. Then I think it'll be a bit like Adesanya Pereira, where he tees off on him on the feet. I think Glover will try. I think he will land a jab, land the overhand right, hurt Glover. He'll be wobbly, then he'll go down against the cage and he'll land the ground and pound. I think he will get the belt. And seeing him as a champion, I think there's a lot more exciting matchups. Him and Blachowicz is great. Him versus Ankleev is fantastic. I like to see him, and obviously Prohaska will be the one. I said recently that I think that my wild prediction for the year could be that maybe Alex Pereira maybe becomes a double champ and goes up to light heavyweight and takes the belt. Pereira with his power, Hill with his power would be explosive. There's so many intriguing fights if he takes the belt. So I think he'll take it though. I think he's a younger man, more to gain, I think, from this. And I think for Glover, amazing fighter, but it's one of them. You can't need him. You just need Hill to take the belt. As good as Glover is, I mean, if he takes the belt, I'm not complaining. To me, whoever it is, that I don't really have a preference when guys fight. I mostly just want the best fighter to win, and that's what we see most times. So, but yeah, I think Glover's been incredible. But I just think now Hill will take it. I think it's his time, and I think he'll be the new champion. Be interested to see how he does against some of these other guys in the division. Very young at 31, so for a fighter in mixed martial arts, especially. So yeah, an interesting fight, but an interesting card in general. Quite exciting all around. I think it's a solid card to start the year. And yeah, here we are, UFC 283, the first card of 2023. And yeah, I'll do a review as always after it. And yeah, until next time.